Okay, I'd like to invite up onto stage Lukas Rose. Lukas is the MD and founder of ProperBird, and he's going to talk about a super interesting topic around a data-driven approach to growing property portals, and I'm very interested in hearing this. Over to you, Lukas.
Exactly. Thanks very much for having me. All right, so who of you has ever played Monopoly? When I was a kid, I used to love that game. I was a real power player. I even annoyed my parents, but always wanted to play. And what I enjoyed most was observing the other players. Which properties do the others go for? Who's going for houses and for hotels on their properties? And who's spendthrift and who's not? Following each step of the game was just super insightful, and I loved the strategic complexity. Luckily, I could track every single move as I had the bird's eye view over the playing field. Of course, there are many possible pathways to winning this game, and there's quite some luck involved. But in the end, it's about understanding the other players to find the right strategy to win. Later in life, I entered the real world of economics. In my first job at Volkswagen, I worked in the strategy department. And my job was to support the analysis of some Chinese companies to define the right product for the market over there. And I had to answer questions like, which manufacturers offer which trucks? What are the specifications? What are the quality differences? How many of them were sold? And so forth. So what did I do? Again, I chose to observe what the other players were doing. This time, by following their footprints closely on classifieds. But whatever I did, I could always only see a fraction of the market. I just couldn't see every single truck that was being offered. And I was blown away by the difficulty of getting accurate and reliable information about what the competitors were up to. In terms of monopoly, my playing field did not look like this. It rather looked like this. It was just impossible to get the bird's eye view over the playing field and see every single truck that was offered. That's how I realized the importance of transparency and seeing things from above. A couple years later, I met my co-founders Oma and Jörg. And all of us are engineers by profession, and we quickly realized that we all share a passion for getting an overview before moving about things. No one of us likes to operate in blindness, only seeing a fraction of the market. Each of us strives to look at things from above, to understand and see clearly what's happening. But why is a couple of engineers talking to you about marketplace PPW? Well, Jörg is a professor for platform economics in one of the leading universities in Germany, the LMU in Munich. And for more than 10 years, he's been actively researching how platform markets work and what the inefficiencies are. Throughout his academic career, he's been looking at different industries, starting from automotive, over hospitality, to real estate. And while talking to platform executives, he quickly realized that all of them share the very same problem. They all struggled to get the bird's eye view over the market they operate in. Defining and executing the right strategy was more guesswork than science. Given his engineering background, Jörg started to write his own crawlers to support his research. And when he told me about it, I thought this is really what I would have hoped for back then at my time at Volkswagen. So 2 years ago, we decided to start our journey by tackling the real estate market. And since then, we managed to close deals with industry heavyweights by providing them the bird's eye view that they always wished for. So how does ProperBird exactly help real estate marketplace to execute their strategy and accelerate growth by providing this bird's eye view? Well, we collect every single listing of the leading real estate portals in currently 10 EU countries in real time. All the data is aggregated, cleansed, and deduplicated. With this data set, you can really see every single transaction that's happening on your market. And the data doesn't only contain information about the property itself, but also about the seller, be it an agent in secondary markets or a developer in primary markets. With this, it's the tool to execute your strategy. Let's have a closer look at how we help one of the leading marketplaces in Germany to execute their strategy. This is Kai. Kai is the former CEO of Immowelt. And a couple of years back, Jörg and Kai met for a joint research topic between LMU and Immowelt. Immowelt is the second biggest platform in Germany. And for those of you less familiar with the German real estate market, don't worry, here's the recap. The German real estate market is a highly established market with 3 big players. It's ImmoScout, Immowelt, and eBay Kleinanzeigen. Overall, the market shows roughly 800,000 listings of residential homes for sale per year, and 80% of these are offered by agents. Given the maturity of the market, it's quite obvious that all of these three players know their business really well. However, Kai wanted to make sure the future success of Immowelt by stabilizing and even increasing the market share. As an industry expert, he quickly knew what he had to do. First, he wanted to increase demand for the platform. Second, he wanted to increase supply of listings. And third, he wanted to stabilize the supply. Now let's zoom in on his concrete ideas on how to generate growth. To increase demand, Immowelt wanted to drive traffic by increasing the perceived value of the platform among customers. For this, Kai's idea was to flag listings that can exclusively be found on their platform. To increase supply, Kai wanted to be able to show more listings on the platform, and for this, Immowelt had to acquire more agents and invite them to post their listings on Immowelt as well. And lastly, to stabilize supply, Kai's idea was to reduce the number of agents posting their listings on several platforms at the same time. And to implement these three good ideas, Kai needed to know exactly what agents were doing on other platforms. But he just didn't have access to this very information. To increase demand, increase supply, and stabilize supply, Kai needed the bird's eye view over the German real estate market. And we helped Immowelt to set up the technical infrastructure and implement Kai's strategy. Let's take a closer look at how we did it. First, real-time data collection and matching. Flagging exclusive listings is of course only possible when seeing every single listing that's on the market right now. For this, an accurate matching of listings across the three platforms was necessary. And especially challenging was the requirement that matching had to be done in real time. After a couple of iterations, we managed not only to get the data, but also the matching done in real time. For this, we're using several variables, and most notably, image comparison. And when crawling every single listing in the market and matching all of these listings, we're automatically tracking every agent's activity as well. With this, we could create first a mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive agent directory of all agents that are active in Germany. And second, we could detect those agents that were multi-homing. Let's take a look at the numbers. The first objective was to increase demand by driving traffic and highlighting exclusive listings. We gave Immowelt the tool to identify those listings, and since the day we started working together 2 years ago, this number has increased by 26%. Now, more than 3 out of 10 listings can only be found on their platform. The second objective was to increase supply by acquiring more agents. With our agent directory, Immowelt could increase the number of agents under contract by 18%. And lastly, the last objective was to stabilize supply by reducing the number of agents multi-homing. With our detection mechanism, this number could be reduced by 14%. So, before working with us, Kai could always only see a fraction of the market. And in terms of monopoly, he just couldn't see which properties the others go for and who's going for houses and for hotels in their monopoly field. His playing field looked more like this. Without the bird's eye view of the German real estate market, the execution of the strategy just wouldn't have been possible. Now let me conclude with a question. Do you have the bird's eye view over your market? Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to receiving your questions.
Lukas, thank you for that.
Thank you.
I love this idea. I love this idea because I remember back when we were at RA, that was the big issue, right? You couldn't work out who was on your site, who wasn't on your site, what listings did you have, did you have all the listings from the agents, and so on.
Exactly.
Of course, in those days, we didn't have all this wonderful technology. We relied on scraping. It's a fun story, very fun story. And Scott will remember this. There was a company called Real Estate View. There was a bunch of agents on there that weren't on REA. Luckily, they presented the agents on that site in a very nice tabular format that we could literally cut and paste and shove in an Excel spreadsheet. We worked out who wasn't on us, and we sent letters to their customers. saying that you're not advertising on REA, which therefore put pressure in the market. So this data is critical to growing the business. So I love what you're doing here and how you're unlocking value by giving that whole monopoly board a view of it all. You said that you aggregate listings, and thanks to that you know about the transactions. How? Or do you take a listing as a transaction?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So this is more about supply, not the conversion to a transaction.
Exactly. We're observing the asking prices only, of course, like we're not having access to the real transaction prices in most of the countries we're active in. In some, like currently we're, as I said, in 10 European countries, and in some of them, especially in Northern Europe, we also have access to the real transaction prices. But for example, in our home market in Germany, we just don't, so we're observing the supply.
So portals tend to hate people crawling their listings. How do you deal with complaints or any sort of attempts to block you?
The attempts to block, I guess that's the magic we get to work. Yeah, we're really good at
changing IP addresses,
for example, and complaints. Like we're working good so far.
Yep. So the answer is you don't care. Okay. Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay. Because I think at the end of the day, the value of the data you're creating is enormous. We'll talk about that one. How long did the Immowelt project take you? Why can't portals develop the solutions in-house?
So overall, it depends a bit on the complexity of the market and also the bot detection of the platforms, how long it takes to ramp up a platform. But for the Immowelt project, it took us with all the iterations we made, because the requirements were really super high, especially the matching in real time was a real challenge. And that it was a hard requirement from Immowelt. It took us about 2.5 months approximately to set it up.
Right, but now you understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
So to enter a new market is much faster?
Yeah, we generalize most of the functions. But again, it depends a bit on the number of portals that we're collecting in the country, and then of the complexity. Okay. But it's quite a lot faster.
What was interesting is when we're at Matula, I think we had some conversations around providing this as a service, because Matula does similar stuff, right? It sort of crawls and scrapes, as does Trover as well, many of these portals. And for us, it was all about generate traffic and leads and clicks and monetization that way. But the monetization of the data intelligence, which is what you're doing, it's an intelligence type product. How do you plan to earn money in the long term?
So our business model is a flat SaaS fee, and we're selling to portals on the one hand, but we're also selling, back in our home market in Europe, we're selling to other real estate players as well, to banks, appraisals, asset managers, and so forth.
Just to give them that holistic view of the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you thought about, because one of the ideas that we had many, many years ago, probably about 20 years ago now, was if you, sitting on all this data, you should be able to provide suburb by suburb data analytics for the agencies. Who's got what listings, who's got what market share, how's that moving over time, and so on. Have you thought about creating easy-to-use products for those segments?
We've been actually looking into this also for developers. But what we've encountered, we're sitting on all of this data, and we also have the abilities to build easy-to-use front ends and so forth. But we realized it's really lacking the willingness of buying intelligence from the side of the agent. They really feel like they know their suburbs, and they don't require any further information. And then, I can do education, but if they are strong believers that they know the world, then that's how it is.
I think where the real value comes is that the people who operate at the franchise level,
exactly,
trying to work out probably two questions: where do I open a new franchise?
Exactly. And
the second is, who are the good salespeople within the markets I'm operating?
Exactly.
To try to poach them and bring them across.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm not sure what this question is about. What do you think of portal people?
I don't know. I like them. That's why I'm here.
Okay. Honestly, I think this is a great service. If I'm running a portal and I've got this insight into the market that I'm operating in, and I can rapidly work out what agents aren't on me or what listings aren't on me, I can solve so many problems in terms of getting coverage. So the answer is you love them, which makes a lot of sense. What's exclusive in your product, and have you invented crawling analysis? What is it that's unique, and what is it that isn't?
What it isn't is we haven't invented crawling and analysis. Of course, there are other people crawling as well. What we're really, really good at is first the matching Like we're really, really good at it. And the other is, and I think that's also why it's super interesting to be here, is we're one of the few players having an internationally harmonized data model. So all the data we're collecting in the current markets we're in, it's all in the same data structure, which is like super important for Aviv, for Axel Springer, for example, as they just want to deal with several different providers having all the mess of cleansing data.
Okay. Clearly, Alex is a management consultant. Are you, Misi, mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive in your analysis? You know, making sure you haven't got duplicates, and so you actually have the complete market covered.
Yeah. So as I said, the requirements of setting up this this deduplication were like super, super high. So I'd say we are Misi. We're using several variables for matching these listings. And of course, at some point, there are limitations to the matching. Say, for example, two agents are taking very different pictures, and all of the variables that we are observing are different. So they're basically like listing a different property for the same type of object. Then, of course, we're having struggles to deduplicate them. But yeah, we're Misi.
Okay. How do you think AI will affect your business?
Good question. I think we are already using AI, for example, for this image comparison thing. I guess it will help us to be even better and faster.
Okay. I think the interesting application of AI to your business is a front end, because if I'm running a portal, my questions will be different to, say, if Scott's running a portal or someone else is running a portal, but we could all be operating in the same market. And at one level, you'll probably have generic answers, you know, which everyone has availability to look at, but how I would think about it will be different. So I think where it becomes interesting is teaching the AI to interpret the data based on the question I'm asking. Okay, that I think will become super interesting, how you do it. One last question is, how do you decide which listing is original one to keep? First come, first served? Is there a scoring mechanism? How do you think about that?
The way we do it currently is it's a first come, first serve. So if you see it, say, on ImmoScout at first, and then it's 10 days after listed on another platform, then we're seeing this is duplicate, and the first one was on ImmoScout.
So you're able to provide intelligence on which portals they're listing on before others, which is always an interesting thing, right? If I'm an agent and I might put it up on Scout24 before I put it up on Immowelt, then the question is, why are you doing that? Why isn't it instantaneous?
Exactly.
For both.
Exactly. Okay. And it also gives Immowelt the intelligence to like precisely select the agents to talk to, reduce multi-homing, and so forth. Okay. Yeah.
Super last question. How does your work and products for third parties like banks, etc., how do you work with them? As you mentioned, you know, the space of the laws, data privacy, and so on, because especially in Europe, there's a whole bunch of this data privacy law.
Yeah, I've been talking quite a lot about that with them. So we are collecting publicly available data, so that's not of any issue. What we were once trying to do is as well like getting the real transaction prices, for example, from German banks, but that was like a hell of a project, and everyone was telling me like, you better get your hands off that, that's just not going to work, it's going to take like years to get the data. So that's pretty much the answer.
Fantastic. Lukas, I like what you're doing. I think this is a very innovative approach to solving a problem of running a portal, running a marketplace, but also if I'm running a transaction business, right? Because you get insights into those segments. And as Sean was talking before about, you know, the segment that, for example, in Uruguay, that Ricardo, this guy, he's not here, focuses on, which is 5 to 8 floors, 2-bedroom apartments, you know, and which are the segment. You should be able to provide data on that whole market. What is that whole market? So I can work out my market share of that segment. Exactly. Which I bet at the moment Ricardo's only guessing.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So it's like really on demand. Like we're having the bird's eye view on the market, and it depends a bit on the questions that each of the portals is having. And if that's one of them, we can answer it as well.
Oh yeah, but I think it goes far beyond portals.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's a lot of opportunity with this product on a global basis. Anyway, Lukas, thanks very much.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you.